Hey guys, as you've probably already figured out by the title of the video and what's on the table here, I'm going to be discussing a holster, a belt, and a little bit about a gun that I got pretty recently. These actually, the holster and belt, just came in the mail yesterday. And after wearing them around the house and just sort of going about my usual, daily shit to do, I guess, around the house, just kind of doing my thing and wearing this around the house for probably 10 hours or so, I guess. I just kind of wanted to give some initial thoughts on I guess the overall kind of like apparent quality of the holster and the belt. And then, I'll probably do some updates later on to kind of show people what I think about the products after I've actually carried the gun with them for, a considerable amount of time instead of just, 10 hours or so over the course of like a day and a half. Oops. So yeah. These are from, obviously High Noon holsters, which I had never ordered anything from that company before. This is the bare necessity, as you can see, for that PPS M2. So this is the holster. Oh shit, shaking the camera around. This is the holster, and as you can see, it's quite heavy leather. It's fairly thick, rough out for the see, there's a stamp, PPS M2. It's rough out, which I actually very much prefer for inside the waistband leather holsters because it provides a little bit more traction and it kind of sticks in place better, between your body and your belt. It just, at least from what I can tell, a rough out leather holster will tend to shift around a lot less than either a Kydex or a sort of normal smooth side out configuration leather holster. So the leather is very, sort of hefty and chunky. The holster itself is actually kind of chunky. And then, you can see obviously this reinforcement stitched over where the clip goes and then across the whole opening of the holster so that it's basically double thick through here. I don't want to squeeze this really hard. It's just not really a good idea. But I have actually, while wearing this, you can draw and reholster and it doesn't collapse on itself. Even when the belt is like as tight as I can make it, it does not close up. You don't have to, fuck around and try and, use your offhand to kind of wedge the holster open and then jam the gun back. It's very easy to draw and reholster with this. There's no issues with the opening collapsing after you draw the gun. So very nice from that standpoint. Now let's see if I can show you guys. So the inside, there, I guess you can kind of see it in the light. The inside, the detail molding on the inside appears to be quite good, and the fit of the gun in the holster is just excellent. I mean, it comes just over the edge of the muzzle. Really nice. I really wish the barrels on these PPS M2s had a decent muzzle crown on them, which unfortunately they don't, but what are you going to do? It's kind of an aside anyway at the moment. So yeah, and obviously this is canted, so you might think that I was wearing this at like 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. But I actually use this as an appendix holster for 2 reasons. One, if you have a canted holster at that position, all it does is bring the butt of the gun closer into your body, so it shortens the profile this way, which is important for me because I don't really have a lot of room. I usually wear like 32-inch waist jeans, so I'm quite skinny, I guess. And any little tricks I can do to sort of reduce the profile of the gun, I'm gonna do. Which, by the way, you might think that because it's in front of you and it's canted, that it's somehow awkward to draw or something like that, like versus a straight drop holster. I'm not going to say that a straight drop holster wouldn't be just the slightest bit faster, but this, to me, there's zero issues with using a 15-degree forward cant like this in the appendix position. I haven't had a single problem with doing it either with Kydex holsters in the past or with this leather holster that I have here. It's just not a problem for me. And then the other thing that I like about the canted holsters, especially one that's a nice high, sort of high ride like this one is, which is again part of the reason that I wanted to go with this design. One of the reasons I like these canted holsters is because it keeps the belt farther away from the grip. So you've got plenty of room to get a full firing grip on the gun, and you just grab it and draw it, and it's very you don't have to fuck around and kind of sometimes, like especially on leather holsters where say this part of the leather, this sort of area right up by the trigger guard or where they might have a retention screw like this, sometimes makers make what I think is a terrible mistake in making this portion come way too close to the grip of the gun, where I can't even get one of my fingers around the gun there because there's not enough clearance between my finger and the leather, and that is not the case with this. It's excellent. It's very fast to draw. I don't have any issues with concealability. The only thing that is like a slight knock against this holster so far is really just that it is quite chunky. I mean, if you look at it like this, it does add, I'm not going to lie, it does add quite a bit of bulk to the width of the gun. But again, that's not a huge, to me anyway, it's not a huge deal because this gun is already like basically a little under an inch thick. I think it's about 990 thou thick or so. Don't quote me on that, but it's slightly less than an inch thick in terms of like the slide width. So the gun is thin enough where that extra leather isn't, it's not like you're carrying a Glock 30 that's already a fucking brick, and then you add another, 3/8 of an inch of leather to the outsides of it, in total. And now you got a major problem on your hands because it's like you got a 2-inch wide, chunk of material between your belt and your body. This is not that bad. It's only an inch to begin with, so I really don't. It's not uncomfortable at all. But that is the one downside, is that in terms of concealability, there is just the slightest little bump, like right here around my belt. But again, I don't really have any issues with that because I basically always wear some sort of button-up shirt. And unless I'm going out with like a sports jacket or something like that on, I don't tuck my shirts in. It's too formal for me to do that. I don't need to wear them for business, and I don't need to wear them for formal occasions very often. So I would either have my shirt untucked and covering this anyway, or a shirt tucked in and a sports jacket over it. So it's really not that big of a deal. But that is the one downside, is that this is quite a chunky little holster. But the combination of this short barrel gun, where it's just, as it says here, 3.18 inch barrel, the short barrel of the gun, plus the canted design, plus the high ride height of this particular holster, means that when this is on my belt and I sit down, it doesn't jab into my, the muzzle of the gun is not being forced into my leg and like smashing into my nuts and shit like that. It's very, very comfortable. I've actually been very surprised. I didn't think it would be quite as comfortable to carry this, because it is a fairly large gun. I mean, it's still a single stack 9, but its overall size is really kind of on the upper end of what I can actually conceal. It's similar in size to the Shield 45 that I used to have. Very similar in overall size and weight to that. With this particular holster design, I am just stoked. I mean, I was carrying it, like I said, about 10 hours total over the last couple days, and I've had zero issues with odd pressure points or the holster isn't shifting around, which a lot of that is due to the belt, which I'll get to in a minute. So, initial impressions of the holster, I'm extremely pleased with the design. I can't find any real major complaints. Oh geez. I can't find any, sorry about that. Can't find any, like half the audience just threw up like they were on a roller coaster. I can't find any major complaints to make with the design, except for you can see that tiny little fleck there. I think what that actually is, right in here, I think what that actually is like a slight flake, a chip taken out of whatever enamel finishes on this steel clip, which, by the way, is an excellent clip design in the sense that it will not come off the belt. It's much too deeply curved, and it's way too high a spring tension. So this is not coming off the belt like some of your other... Man, I keep bumping the camera. Sorry about that, guys. It's not going to come off the belt like some other clip designs might. And there's really nowhere for like stuff to snag on this that might accidentally pull upwards on the clip. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I really don't even want to try and open it, because the force required to do that, I don't want to do that on an empty holster. So, I don't want to fuck up the shape of the holster. But anyway, fantastic design, reasonable cost. It appears to be extremely heavy duty. I can't imagine this, just going bad or losing its shape or anything like that. I mean, that's assuming that I still have that gun. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be able to have that one holster for that gun, for the rest of my life. It really appears to me to be a lifetime type holster, just based on the quality of the materials and the stitching. So, not to mention, I actually like the design enough to not want to get rid of it, as opposed to some of my other experiments with holsters over the years. All right, so that's the holster. Now, I'll talk about the belt, which is also something that I've been very, very pleased with. I got this in a natural, their natural finish, which I'm not really sure what exactly that means. One leather maker's definition of a natural or perhaps undyed leather might be different than another maker's definition, but I followed the sizing recommendations on their website, and it appears to have worked just fine. I was an odd number size, and and then they ask you to go up by 2 inches from the way that they want you to measure the belt. So they want you to measure your belt, and then a belt that you already have that you wear on a regular basis. They want you to measure that and then add 2 inches to it. And they only have sizes in even inch increments. So I ended up rounding up because that's what they told me to do. And in hindsight, I think, again, I was a little iffy about it, because this is a size 40 belt according to their, measurement practices. This is a size 40. I wear a 32-inch pants, like I said, so it just seems like a really weird, way too big number for me. So I was a little bit hesitant, but I thought, I don't know how they size things. The numbers are essentially arbitrary anyway, so I'm just going to follow their recommendations to a T. And that way, if it doesn't work out, I can just tell them directly, like, well, I did exactly what you told me to do on the website, and it's just a little too big, so you want to help me out here. But yeah, in effect, I got what I think is basically the perfect size. So their sizing measurements might seem really weird to people, but just follow their recommendations and see what happens, I guess would be what I have to say. But anyway, sizing aside, I got the chrome buckle. The only real issues that I've found with this buckle, and they're quite minor. You won't be able to see it on camera, but I wear it in this direction, like if I was looking downward at the belt from, when it's on, I wear it in this direction. So this upper edge of the buckle here, there are a couple of very, very minor little, almost like high spots, like where it's almost like a tiny little burr that got plated over. But I've already kind of knocked those down a bit. What I actually did was take a piece of cardboard and just kind of buffed that spot, and the cardboard is sort of mildly abrasive. So that seems to have kind of knocked them down a little bit to where they're not so snaggy. Very, very minor though. Like it's not. I should really stress this in order to not, sort of give people the wrong impression. There's nothing functionally wrong with this. It's not like it's sharp enough to where it's going to tear up your clothing. I just happened to notice there were two very small sort of defects in the surface finish of the buckle that I can still feel them right now, but they're so minor. It's completely inconsequential. So yeah, other than that, the buckle and this keeper, I really love the fact that they have this keeper made out of the same material. It really just makes it look nice, and it's very solid. You know what I mean? It's nice to have this keeper made out of a some sort of metal like this, because one issue that I've had on a lot of other belts, not necessarily just gun belts, but belts in general, is that their keepers are sort of thin, shitty leather, and they're on some sort of a little slidey mechanism and shit, and shit gets pushed around between belt loops, and it gets all, misshapen, and it's kind of all over the place. This is fantastic because it's basically riveted in place. It's between, again, look at the quality of the stitching and just the heaviness of the leather. Fantastic shit. But this is basically riveted in place. There's nothing directly attaching it, but it's stuck between the two posts. So it's not going anywhere. I really like this. It seems like a minor, it might seem like a minor thing. Like, oh, it's just the keeper. What, how could it be that big of a deal? But to me, at least, this is a very, very nice touch that really adds a certain amount of value to this particular belt, where there's not a lot of other makers that offer this that sort of matching keeper setup as like a standard product. I'm sure if you talk to some of the gun makers or belt makers, gun belt makers, that you could just directly ask them, I want this feature, and they'd probably oblige. So it's not like it's a high noon exclusive, but nobody that I've come across has this as sort of their standard feature on their gun belt. So it's just kind of a nice aesthetic and functional touch that I really appreciated. This would be about the only minor sort of like cosmetic error on the belt, which I really don't even care. It's not that big a deal. But the tapered section here, obviously, as you can tell, is just slightly uneven. But I mean, shit, man, it's a handmade belt. It's not like there's any flaws in the stitching or anything. Everything's still solid. It's just very slightly uneven, which honestly, it doesn't really bother me at all. Most of the time, virtually all the time, actually, that I'm going to wear this, I have a shirt over it anyway, so the only person that's going to see it is me. And I really don't give a shit about that. But now I'll give you some more close-ups of sort of the stitching and the general leather quality. The only thing that's a minor concern at the moment is that if you look here, you can kind of see that the leather around the hole areas is getting a little wrinkly already, which that is a minor concern to me. I'm not sure how fast it's going to progress or what's going to end up happening. I really don't know. But that's one thing that I was like, ooh, I wonder I wonder what the future has in store for this. But otherwise, I mean, other than that, it's just, very nice leather, very even stitching. I kind of like that yellow contrast stitching. It looks kind of cool, especially with this natural, very, sort of light tan oiled leather finish. There's their stamp on the inside. Buckle again. Look at the, let's see if I can get it to focus. Check out the, isn't that nice? Little, I don't know what you call them, like floral. Oh shit, you can see my reflection in the, you can see my reflection in the keeper. Anyway, yeah, I just thought these little kind of like, I don't know, whatever, patterned post heads, those look kind of nice. I don't know, that's about it. And then, just a close-up of the stitching on the underside there. See, there's that size 40 I was talking about. This thing just looks just fine. Like, it's hard for me to really rave about it because I don't actually have any other leather gun belts. So, because I don't have something to directly compare it to, it's hard to really say how good it is versus other people's stuff, or really impossible to say. But just on its own, just looking at what's in front of me, I see no major issues with this at all. It's as the name implies with that rock steady, it's a very stiff gun belt in the lateral direction. But it's quite easy to coil though. It's not hard to put on and take off or buckle up and stuff. It's very easy to sort of work with. But the gun does not shift around at all. Oh, here's where the holster has been sitting. And you can see the little scratch marks. Again, I wouldn't call that a problem at all. That's just sort of what happens when you run a high tension metal clip that kind of slides over a nice, burnished leather. This is just normal shit. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just sort of the normal abrasion. But I just thought I'd show you guys what the clip is doing to the belt. Yeah. So overall, quite satisfied at the moment. Really no major complaints. Same with the gun, actually, too. Just to go on a short diatribe about the gun.